We see the way that the client has been communicated to by this previous vendor, and it's sort of like, I understand why you're leaving. The communication is just horrible. They are blaming the client for things. The client has no idea what they're talking about. It's in a world that they don't understand. So some just legal agreements that we've seen, especially from kind of website hosting and maintenance companies where it seems like they own your assets that the client really should own. And so that to us is just, it's not a healthy practice. I think that's a really shady practice. It must be legal because they're able to do it, but the client is not tech savvy enough to understand what's in their agreement. So we've seen a lot of bad practices out there that it's sort of like, just don't do that. Don't be the bad guy and be horrible to your clients, maybe.
On Creative Assembly's The Spark podcast, our mission is to amplify Nashville's diverse creative voices, foster growth through shared journeys, and inspire a city that thrives on collaboration. And now, here's The Spark.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to The Spark. I'm your host, Mark Scrivner, and today I'm joined by a great friend and someone I've looked up to since we started Snapshot, Mariko Hickerson with Huckleberry Branding. It's so great to have you on the show today. Thank you for being a part of The Spark.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, well, Mariko, as we kick off the show, maybe you could just take our audience through your journey. What got you into the creative world, maybe your first start, all the way to where you're at today?
Yeah, so I'm a Tennessee native, but I went to college in San Diego, and I worked at a newspaper, a small, I lovingly call it a melt-in-your-driveway newspaper. You get it, whether you want it or not. But I absolutely loved that job. It taught me a lot of the foundational skills and even the tools that I'm still using and building upon today. So I think the biggest skill that I learned then was sort of the art of storytelling. So how to capture a good story, how to extract it out of a one-on-one interview or a meeting or a press conference, and then, translate it into something that is engaging and clear and fair. I learned a lot of other skills as well that I'm still using today. So would occasionally help our editor with page layout. At the time, we used Quark Express, but that is now, Adobe Creative Suite. Would have to publish my own articles on our WordPress site. Would measure those articles and page views and engagement on, Google Analytics and Search Console. I also realized, and this was I think driven by maybe a little bit of vanity and wanting people to see my articles, I realized that my articles weren't showing up on Google News. So I figured out, how do I get my articles on Google News? So all of those things, are just kind of the foundation of the core services that we provide at Huckleberry now. So we do, branding and graphic design. We do WordPress web development and maintenance, and then we do search marketing. And so that was really, I think, the first job that laid the foundation for what we're doing now. I think I got my first taste of entrepreneurship really as a contractor. So I had interviewed a gentleman at the paper, and he owned what I would call like a tech nonprofit. And he reached out to me after our interview, and he made the incorrect assumption that as a reporter, I, one, knew all of the other reporters in town and could do PR for him because of relationships that I didn't actually have. And two, that I also knew marketing because I could write. And so I said, yep, I sure can. And so he paid me to, do all of his marketing. So I would write press releases. I'd pitch, his company to other reporters in town, write blog posts and email campaigns and social media, worked with their web developer on content for the website. So he sort of trusted me and just gave me carte blanche. He shouldn't have, because I did not know what I was doing. But I got a really great experience just being responsible for doing the work, for coming up with the strategy and executing. Picked up one other client, a friend of my husband's at the time. His wife actually worked for a national franchise, sort of as their franchise director, operations person. But marketing fell under her purview, and she was like, I do not know what I'm doing. Can you help me out? So I said, sure. Yeah, I'm doing it for someone else. I can do it for you too. So did their social media, email campaigns, press releases, And those were my first 2 clients. They kind of just fell into my lap. But I made the naive assumption that I could make twice as much going freelance as I could at the paper because I was charging, my billable rate was twice as much as my hourly rate at my full-time job. So I jumped ship. Obviously, that's a naive assumption because not all of that time is billable. You have to go hunt for the work, and no one pays you to do that. So I joined a platform called Elance at the time. Now it's Upwork. Picked up some additional freelance writing jobs, and that was pretty easy for me to gain traction on. So I picked up a few clients, and then I kind of shut it down, and I had my little stable of clients, and met my now husband in San Diego. He's from Nashville. At that time, I was sort of untethered and was, I think, a little eager to come back to the South. And we moved to Nashville, had my little stable of clients, but I did not have a business. I was a contractor. I was a 1099. But I had my clients. I worked in my pajamas, and I made enough money to, pay rent and groceries and things. A friend of mine, again, a friend of my husband's, she I think took me out to lunch one day and was basically like, what do you do in your pajamas all day? How do you make money? I know you have clients. I know you're kind of in marketing. Like, what do you do? And she shared her business idea. She worked at Vanderbilt in the dean's communication department and managed designers and developers, essentially. And so she and I talked about going into business together. That was in fall of 2013. We officially incorporated in December 2013, so 12 years old this month.
Wow. Congrats.
Yeah, so that's, I think, pretty much how it all started.
Well, you started as a typical entrepreneur. You just you took on work. You didn't know how you were going to do it, but you figured it all out, and it became a business. So I guess when you met your co-founder, what was the initial vision for Huckleberry Branding?
Yeah, so a lot of my existing clients were primarily, I would call it, I was doing content marketing. I was writing blog posts, email campaigns, social media. And she came in with a slightly different skill set. It was more on the project management side, but she also had a network of maybe designers and developers, and she knew how to manage those. So we did start. I'm not sure, to be honest, if we had our sights set on a branding agency or a marketing agency. But when we did first start, we did everything, a 2-woman shop, and we're a full service agency. So we had, you and I knew each other at the time. And I remember you looking at our site and you were like, you have 9 services on your website. So we did social media, email marketing, and everything was sort of siloed. And, so I think our sites were set either on sort of full service marketing agency. We had more content marketing clients. Branding was something that at the time, I think it was a great word, and it was not as generic as marketing. There were so many other marketing agencies out there. Branding was available. So we did sort of morph into that. We did love, both of us, design, and we don't design and develop logos ourselves. But it's something that we sort of grew into, and partially because of the name. We built some traction around that and began designing and developing logos. At first, they were probably garbage, but then we got a better and better team around that. And actually, Molly, our full-time designer, was my first hire in 2016, and she's still with us today. And she has improved her own skills, and us as a company have learned a lot more about kind of the process and how to extract, that exactly what the client is looking for and what their brand attributes are and things like that. So we've definitely morphed. We do not have 9, services. We are not a full service marketing agency. We've really honed down to the 3 things that we do best. And so it's definitely morphed over 12 years, but I want to say full service marketing agency was our original intent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's like every small agency owner, they offer everything most of the time, not all the time. But actually, looking back over the years, I mean, I've always looked at your designs and thought, man, you guys do incredible work. And I know, that's a small part of your business today, but the name is still so strong with Huckleberry Branding. I mean, and I know you get lots of clients based on that branding work, but over the years, you've used your like analytical expertise and probably the stuff that you learned as a reporter of getting your own stories found. And now one of the strengths that I know about you is you're probably one of the strongest SEO agencies in the city. And so tell us a little bit about like that evolution.
Yeah. Thank you, first of all. Yeah. It is interesting. There are not a lot of SEO agencies here in Nashville, so I think we filled a bit of a gap. And it's something that maybe because I had that initial understanding of how to look at Google Analytics and Search Console and get on Google News, 20 years ago. And things have definitely evolved. I mean, they're evolving every day in that realm. But I think one thing that we do differently, and it maybe this is what helped our trajectory, is I did come from a content storytelling background. Mm-hmm. We do have the creative, design element as a core pillar of our business. And I think a lot of SEO agencies, they come from more of the technical background. So they may have been software developers or, data analysts. And so not knocking anyone else, there's just kind of different ways of doing things. There is a technical, science behind search marketing. Mm-hmm. So it's incorporating the keyword, identifying the right keywords, incorporating them into the messaging, naturally, but in all the right places. It's measuring and tamping down on crawl errors and things like that. But I think what a lot of people who come from more of the technical SEO background, what they miss is the storytelling aspect, the creative aspect, the branding aspect. So sort of the tying in of the company's brand attributes into even your meta titles and descriptions, which are the little, short pieces of copy that you see in Google search engine results pages. Those, to me, are an opportunity. Those are little text ads to me. And so it's important, instead of just putting, the page name, maybe stuff the keyword in there and then put your site name, make it a compelling ad copy. I mean, it's a small opportunity, but it's an opportunity to weave in some of your brand story, some of, your core messaging. So I think that is something that we have certainly evolved more into search marketing, but we do stay true to the brand messaging, sort of content marketing roots that we're just approaching it from a very different angle, I think, than a lot of other SEO agencies are.
I wanted to invite you to our next Creative Assembly gathering. It's our relaxed, bi-monthly networking event in East Nashville, where ideas spark over drinks and creative collaborations come to life. We meet at 1530 Riverside Drive with light snacks, refreshments, and plenty of free parking. Whether you're an agency owner, part of a creative team, a freelancer, student, or even a business owner curious about collaboration, you're always welcome at Creative Assembly. RSVPs aren't required, but they help us plan for space and treats. Just search Creative Assembly Nashville on Eventbrite or visit creativeassembly.agency/events for details and the RSVP link. Come ready for connections, conversations, and creative collaboration. We can't wait to see you there. From a client standpoint, we both know this not to be true, but it's like SEO might just be smoke and mirrors. And some agencies, we've seen a lot over the years that they do smoke and mirrors work, and it's not, either keyword stuffing, and I know, Google has really cracked down on a lot of this stuff, or, there's a lot of like black hat type stuff. And, I've always enjoyed talking to you because you can get right to the point of, hey, this is all the stuff you need to work on. and it's everything you just talked about how you approach it. But I guess, what do you see out there in, like, when agencies do it wrong? What is that? What does that look like that you have to come in and maybe clean up?
Yeah, we've seen, I will say, over the years, one of the freelance jobs that I had early on was actually writing content for a SEO strategist who had kind of his own business for dental clients. So I know so much about dental procedures and things. But at that time, I recall there being a lot more black hat, seeing black hat techniques everywhere. So black hat techniques are things like just really spammy backlinks. Really, like, we've actually had clients ask us, can't we just insert this keyword in white text on a white background? That's a black hat technique. Wouldn't recommend it. You will get caught. So we're seeing a lot less of that now. And a lot of that, I have obviously tethered my business to Google and kind of search engines in general. So we are we have to follow the whims of Google. But I think Google has gotten a lot better at tamping down on those black hat techniques. You still see them, but what happens is you see sometimes we've encountered client sites with lots of spammy backlinks. I think that's the most common thing that we'll run into. Not to the point where we need to go and disavow a bunch of those backlinks, but we just need to start building a healthier backlink profile. We need to work on the on-page content more than kind of the spammy backlinks. I think what has happened is that those people have been it's getting harder to use black hat techniques because Google keeps each algorithm update is, trying to point people toward valuable content. And so I am seeing it a lot less, but I would say that's the most common thing is just watch where you're getting your backlinks from. Don't keyword stuff. There's some people who have, and nowadays you can produce content at a really fast pace with AI tools. But if you have a 5-10 page small business website and every day you're publishing 500 pages of content, you are absolutely going to get flagged as creating spammy content. It's just so unnatural. That's fine for Amazon, fine for Wikipedia, but not for a small business. So I think that's where we may start seeing more what I would call kind of black hat, gray hat techniques. So less on the spammy backlink profiles, more on just massive, generic content production at such a fast pace that it's not valuable content for Google.
Well, I mean, that kind of leads me into my next question of, SEO. You hear all the time that it's dead or that it's dying because now it's generative engine optimization, and it's all because of the AI and whatnot. And that we both know that not to be true. You've got to do it all. But I guess how are you leaning into the GEO aspect? What kind of things are you working with your clients on figuring this all out and continuing to move them up on the search rankings?
Yeah. So for all of our monthly SEO clients, they're all asking about it. I don't think there's a single one who hasn't asked about it. What we've started doing, we're incorporating LLM data into the reports that we share each month. And what we're seeing is some clients are getting great results, and it's not a high portion of the traffic. So none of our clients are seeing more than, I want to say, 0.5% of their overall website traffic coming from LLMs. However, some of them have gotten some really big sales or really great clients from LLMs. So it's an extra tool that we have in our tool set. I don't see it replacing Google anytime soon. And also Google, has its own answer engines as well that it's incorporating and changing every day. So right now it is a small portion of our total across the board. Like I said, the average is no more than 0.5%. However, it's something that we our learning has so much crossover. The best practices you use for Google is very similar to the best practices for LLMs. So content, I think, is going to be changing a little bit. Now we're seeing a lot more, FAQs and Q&A formats, and people all of a sudden being really, intent on making sure their schema markup on their site is implemented and executed correctly. Those are all SEO best practices as well. And so there's so much overlap that we've done AI visibility audits, we've done AI visibility strategies, and there's so much crossover. This is a lane that we are exploring. We don't have an official GEO service, but it's something we're already incorporating for our existing clients. So that has been, honestly, I feel like I'm going back to when I was first learning SEO and learning how Google Search Console works and how Google's algorithm works. I feel like we're in that kind of exciting space now with LLMs. I don't see it taking over, Google. I see it as another tool in our marketing toolkit. And so we're sort of treating it in that way. It's an opportunity, but I don't see it, at least not anytime soon, taking necessarily our core service away.
Yeah. Well, when you look back over the years, is there one project that kind of stands out that maybe puts you on the map?
The one that I think is the coolest and most fun was we helped launch the Tennessee Whiskey Trail. So this was, back in 2018.
Okay.
Now this, granted, was back when we still said we did everything. So we ran their social media, we did their PR. I mean, we were their marketing, everything. But it was just such a fun group. And, I'm from Tennessee. The Tennessee whiskey is kind of in my blood. And so that was a fun one. I don't know if it necessarily put us on the map, but it gave me a little bit of street cred, I think, when we could say that,
Totally.
That was a project that we did, and they're still a client of ours. We basically just do kind of website maintenance, and they've got an event page coming up, so we're doing a one-off event page for them. So we still have a good relationship with them, but that was just fun. I got to help kind of plan the launch event, and it was just an exciting, very Tennessee kind of thing. I would say the one I'm most proud of, and it's not a particular project. We've had several projects with them, but getting on the radar of HCA was, again, kind of the big Nashville, healthcare kind of company that I know a lot of agencies work with HCA, but I felt like once we got on HCA's radar, once we started doing projects for them every year, to me, I was pretty proud of that, just because it was a large company, not as cool and sexy as the Tennessee Whiskey Trail. So it depends on what audience I'm speaking to. Those are, I think, the couple that I'm pretty proud of, and just honored to have been a part of those projects.
Yeah, that's great. Well, actually, you mentioned HCA. The funny thing is, when we were a video first agency, I'd collaborate with other, video production companies, and it'd be like, who's your biggest client? And they'd be like, HCA. And it's like, oh, okay, well, we did a lot of work with HCA too. But you'd ask 10 of them, and they'd all say, yeah, it's HCA, because there's so many different divisions people work with.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I love that they're using local companies. I think that's a great thing. But yeah, I think that's when you've made it, right? I guess as a Nashville agency.
Hey, as you've grown, I know you've traditionally been remote, where you've had a remote team. And I guess, how do you work to where you can ensure that you keep the same high quality, consistency and the culture of the company, which I know is very strong at Huckleberry Branding. So, how do you do it being remote?
Yeah. I mean, it starts with hiring the right people. Not everyone is going to thrive in a remote environment. So asking, in the very first interview, their sort of desire to work remotely is one thing, but also seeing, can they be responsible working remotely? It's not the time to go wash your dishes and do your laundry. It's, we have structure. So we have daily stand-ups every morning with the team, where everyone kind of reports on what, not so much like a tally of what they're doing each day, but asking questions of other team members on where they're getting stuck. We use ClickUp for project management, so everything has due dates, everything, you time track everything. So it's really easy, without me having to breathe down someone's neck, to see, are you working or are you not? If you're not meeting our clients' needs, if you're not meeting your project deadlines, if you're not communicating. We also have Slack, so more for quick kind of questions among our internal team. If you've gone MIA, for an hour or two, and we look on your calendar and there's nothing on there in terms of meetings or anything like that, it's really easy to tell if you're not working, and it's just you're not producing good work, you're not getting things done on time. So to me, what matters most is that you are responsive to clients, that you're getting your tasks done thoroughly and on time. If you want to walk your dog in the middle of the day, if you want to hit the gym, that's fine, as long as the work is getting done. So I think that structure, we also have our weekly staff calls where we kind of go over a little bit more deeply into the production schedule and things like that. So, but we've had, team members that could not work remotely, and they are no longer with us. Yeah. And that's exactly why the clients start saying, hey, I haven't heard back on this, from this person. And so that I can't have those people on the team, because you have to be responsible for your own workload and responding to clients and getting your work done. So I think it's really, highly contingent on the person. So.
Yeah, I'm sure like us, we, work in office a few days a week, and people love to be around other people. And I'm sure if you're fully remote, it's like you don't necessarily need that sociability, or you find it in other ways. But I think, employees, team members, they, a lot of different things motivate them. And you got to find the right people that can work remote and be accountable to themselves.
Yeah. And I will say I'm someone who, because I'm in sales, I do get a bit more in-person interaction with people outside of my own team. But I also feel I can stay connected with team members via Slack, just them, sharing photos of their kids and, sharing funny stories or sharing songs and things on the Slack channel. As well as kind of one-on-one virtual meetings. We do also get together in person we have our Huckleberry happy hours. So we get together in person. That's just purely, let's go out for drinks and snacks and have fun. We've got our holiday dinner tomorrow night, so we'll see each other, all tomorrow. So our core team is all based here in Nashville, and a handful of our contractors as well. So we do get some of that in-person interaction. We have our retreat in January. So I do think that that's important, probably more so for the other team members, because I get sociability through my own job. But it seems like the team really enjoys those. And so they've even kind of been able to organize those themselves. And we have our social chair, Molly, who picks all the cool places in Nashville for us to go. So yeah, we do get that in-person interaction, which I think is important.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned some big clients, HCA, but also know you work with some smaller clients to, really help them elevate their brand and their, search marketing. Like if somebody approached you and they've got a limited budget, what do you recommend is the single most important thing you gotta do?
I'm going to shoot myself in the foot here, because I'm a marketing agency, and I would say the best thing you could do is go and just find strategic referral partners, go network, like boots on the ground. So if you have a limited budget, I would say get some business cards, maybe a one-pager or something, and go meet people, explain what you do, why. So one of the best things that we did is, so we get a lot of leads from SEO. Mm-hmm. Our own SEO's in a pretty good place. But our best leads are still coming from our strategic referral partners, word of mouth referrals, doing good work for past clients. And so to me, that's still the most important thing. So if you have no marketing budget, go, get gussied up and start hitting some networking events, getting involved in some groups. So it's actually not that would be what I would recommend, because that's how we started. Maybe that's sort of the grassroots. If you have a little bit of a marketing budget, I would say, you do need a website. It doesn't have to be, a 500-page website. If your budget is small, I would say keep it simple, because the more you try and do, sometimes the more amateur it looks. And so keep it simple, keep it clear. You don't, again, I'm shooting myself in the foot here, but you don't need a big fancy logo. That's not what's going to make or break your business. A good business is what makes or breaks your business.
Yeah.
And so
That's interesting.
yeah. So I think those elements are things that you will eventually need, but first you need some cash in your pocket, and to go do that, go network, go, meet some strategic referral partners, and get your first stable of clients kind of organically. That's what I would say.
Well, when I know you guys bring on clients, and it's like they go, Mariko, you're so smart. Like, can you also do these other things? And I know you still, like every small to mid-sized agency in the world, like you still take on that business, but you have to go find strategic partners to do it these days, because you can't do it all. And I guess what do you find as the most important trait with a partner that you bring on? Like what is it that makes them sticky with you? And
Yeah, I mean, trust is the number one. You have to be able to do what you say you're going to do. Quality work is great, but there are a ton of people who do quality work, and I don't necessarily want to work with them because maybe they don't hit their deadlines, or they're not kind people. I want to work with people I enjoy. And so the strategic referral partners that we've built, I think we really almost started off as friends first. So a lot of times, or advisors, we would share knowledge and learn a little bit more about each other's businesses. And so it was we had the trust first, and then we would start thinking of those strategic referral partners. They would come top of mind for things that we didn't do. We don't do social media. We don't do Squarespace websites. And so, I think it's the person more than the work for me that sort of drives whether or not to kind of send work their way. I think they have the same with us. Like, we get a lot of referrals for SEO work from other either branding agencies or WordPress website agencies. Those are two things that we absolutely do, but they know I'm not going to go and try and steal their client for that work. They do great work. They just send us for SEO and for SEO work for their clients, and we collaborate with them well. We even ask that, so I think we want to make them look good. And so I think they trust us with the SEO work because they know we're not going to be shady and try and take their client or pitch other services that they also do. So I think the underlying trait that it holds our little network together of referral partners, both, when I'm referring out and then those that refer back, is just trust.
Yeah, man. You got to do what you say you're going to do. I'm sure that, like every agency out there that has tried multiple strategic partner agencies, you've been burned in the past, and usually it does come down to terrible communication, not being able to deliver on time. Man, it's like you've made us look bad, and we do not like that, right? You've probably dealt with vendor partners that have done that.
Absolutely. Yeah, and we've seen too on the flip side, we get work, and with websites we often have to take over work or a hosting plan from another company, and we see the way that the client has been communicated to by this previous vendor, and it's sort of like, I understand why you're leaving. The communication is just horrible. They are blaming the client for things. The client has no idea what they're talking about. It's in a world that they don't understand. So we've gotten to get some just legal agreements that we've seen, especially from kind of website hosting and maintenance companies, where it seems like they own your assets that the client really should own. And so that to us is just, it's not a it's not a healthy practice. I think that's a really shady practice. It must be legal because they're able to do it, but the client is not tech savvy enough to understand what's in their agreement. So we've seen a lot of bad practices out there that it's sort of like, just don't do that. Don't be the bad guy and be horrible to your clients, maybe. Baseline.
Well, Mariko, over the years, I know you've got a growth mindset. You want to get better. I know you've been involved in Catalyst and Brain Trust and lots of other organizations that help you grow as a leader. Like, what has been one of those, like, the hardest mindset shifts that you've had to make stepping into an entrepreneurial, role, a founder, CEO role?
Yeah, I would say to stop saying yes to everything. That was something that worked well for me in the beginning of my career because it exposed me to a lot of great opportunities by saying, yeah, I can do that, But now that I have a team and we have structure and we have processes, I can't do that. So it's a lesson I have to learn and kind of bite my tongue. When I start saying yes to something, I have to kind of take a beat, count to 10, and say, would my team appreciate me dumping this on their lap? And so we have gotten better at, we don't do anything outside of WordPress. We do search marketing, but we don't do, social media. So we've certainly gotten. I'm still growing in that arena, but I think saying no is really hard. It's just, it doesn't come naturally in my personality. So I think that's been the hardest lesson that I'm still learning today. I'm getting better, but it's always going to be a struggle, I think.
Yeah. Mariko, how do you see like search marketing evolving over the next few years? Like, what are you most looking forward to? Is there anything you're scared of? Where do you see it going?
Oh man, over the next few years, I feel like every day it's changing. Just last week, I think Google rolled out something that we knew about, and then our first client actually got to experience it, where you can use kind of an AI agent to essentially call the top 3 service people in the Google map. And my client, we informed our clients that may be getting these calls because they look extremely spammy, when you get a call from Google. And they start asking about your pricing and things like that. So it's changing every day. And so over the next few years, it's so hard to say. It's hard to look that far ahead. I think in the next year, let's say, Google is going to be changing a lot of its interface. It already has very quickly with, the AI overviews rollout. They at first, something like 50% of searches would show the AI overview result, and then they backtracked on that, and then they kind of reached a happy medium. They're rolling out new features that will be pretty volatile, I'm sure. So and maybe have some hiccups along the way. Of course, LLMs are a force that we need to understand, and those change every day. And just like social media platforms, there's so many of them to understand. I think the underlying, best practices are all about the same. But who's going to rise to the top? Who's going to stay at the top? Those are the ones that I think we need to look out for. Over the next few years, I do see Google remaining dominant, but being more competitive with LLMs primarily. So one of the things, and this is kind of geek speak, but back in September, there was a feature that Google took away from its own search engine where you could essentially see up to 100 search results on the first page. Typically, you only see 10. And maybe conspiracy, but the theory is that they took that away because chatbots were using that to, scrub for information. And so now these chatbots have to use more of their own processing power and credits or whatever to go page by page in Google. And so a lot of people's search impressions in mid-September tanked as a result, but it's more authentic. But so there is this little kind of battle going on between Google and these LLMs, but there's also a lot more of a coalescence of those tools that are kind of coming together and becoming one, and the strategies behind them are very similar. So over the next year, I can't wait to see what rolls out. I'm as, on the edge of my seat as anyone else. I think there's probably going to be more voice, activated type things, or I would imagine, maybe more FAQ type content will be produced to please the LLM and Google gods. So yeah, the shape of the internet, I think, is going to change, but it's already changing every day. So I just anticipate the next few years are going to be like it is now, where it's just a roller coaster, and we're just along for the ride and learning as these new features come up.
Awesome. Well, what are you the most excited about with Huckleberry Branding, like in the future? Like what keeps you going every day?
Yeah, I think we're in this really exciting time. Like I said, with the LLMs, I do feel like I did when I was first learning organic SEO. So it kind of rejuvenated me to have this new platform that is something we can absolutely build a service around. So we just really want to figure out what is valuable. We don't want it to take away from the core service because it's an added tool, not a replacement. So that is exciting. I think also just really honing, we're still growing up and we're still trying to figure out who we want to be when we grow up. And so that is continuing to be an evolution. I do think one of the best things we did was pare down our services from being a full service marketing agency. Some of those services we were not making a huge margin on, and they're so complicated. And paring down and really focusing on what we do best and becoming true experts at that, I think is kind of our guiding light and what we're striving toward. Personally, and I've mentioned this before to you, Mark, but work-life balance is extremely important to me, and I want that of my team too. And I feel like we've gotten to that place, or I've personally gotten to that place where I don't work nights and weekends. So I don't want to sacrifice that. So that, to me, is something I want to build for myself, for my team, just to, be able to leave work at work and not, we're not heart surgeons or brain surgeons. Like there's no marketing emergency really. Maintaining that work-life balance while growing the business and sort of navigating sort of all the changes and just being along for the ride and not being so stuck in our ways. And this is the way we do things and it's never going to change. That's never going to be us. We're always going to evolve. We're always going to adapt to the new technologies and new opportunities.
Those were both a couple very good lessons for other agency owners, like of paring down your services, getting very niched into what you do the very best, and maybe even at some point niching down on clients, and we just do this for these clients,
right.
And the growth there you see with agencies when they do that is pretty extraordinary, but also that work-life balance. I mean, as agency owners, I know we can all kill ourselves from time to time of, putting in a lot of work. So was there anything as we wrap up, Mariko, is there anything maybe that I didn't ask you or that you think would be valuable to the audience?
I don't think so. I think we covered a lot, past, present, future.
Well, Mariko, I really appreciate you being a part of the Spark and appreciate everything you do for the Nashville creative community, and I know you have collaborated with lots of people, and it's been fun watching your journey as you and your team continue to grow Huckleberry Branding into what it's going to be in the future.
Thank you, Mark.
So excited to watch it. Well, that's a wrap of this episode of The Spark. Thank you to Mariko for being a part of the show and bringing all of her expertise around SEO, AEO, GEO, all the O's. So really excited to see where that all goes in the future. But if that sparked any interest with you, please drop any questions you might have in the comments section, and we'll definitely get back to you on those. And if you would, do us a big solid and subscribe, rate, and review the Spark Podcast so that we can get this message out to more agency owners and creatives around Nashville. So until next time, thanks again for tuning into the show.
And that's a wrap on this episode of The Spark from Creative Assembly. Thanks for spending time with us and exploring the minds shaping Nashville's creative future. If you're walking away more inspired, connected, or energized, that's exactly the point. A big thank you to our sponsor, Snapshot, and the incredible team behind the scenes who make this show possible. Your support fuels every conversation and keeps collaboration alive. So if you haven't already, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and leave us a review. Thanks again for tuning in. Until next time, stay creative, stay curious, and keep that spark.